I want to talk because I'm a big fan of striking while the iron is ice cold. I want to talk about Hunter x Hunter Nen Impact. Alternatively pronounced Hunter x Hunter Nen X Impact. No, you do not pronounce the X's. So this is the 3v3 Hunter x Hunter fighting game that is being developed by Taigen, who you might know as the developers of Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Yes, that was not actually Capcom. Capcom was just the publisher. They might have had some, I'm assuming they had a little bit of support and input on the game, but for the most part, the primary development was done by a dev called Taigen. They also did Tatsunoko vs. Capcom a little before that, and they did DNF Duel a year or two ago. Was it a year ago or 2 years ago? I forgot. I think it was last year. They did DNF Duel. That is their most recent game as of now. And they announced, like, hey, we're making a Hunter x Hunter fighting game. And everyone was like, is it going to be an arena fighter? And no, it was not. It was a 3v3. Basically just a new Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Like, wow. Down from, like, the motions of the intro animation to the UI, to the mechanics, to the button layout, to the animation of characters getting hit. It's like the same style where they're like in the air with like their back arched. Their back is arched backwards, like as you're juggling them. And there was like a 15-minute gameplay showcase at Evo Japan that I forgot to talk about. But there was something, so people have already dissected it to death. But I would like to throw in a new perspective on it. That's right. I have something to say about it. So the number one thing that I thought, and which many other people thought, was, wow, this game doesn't look amazing. It's not bad. It's not terrible. But it to be fair, it does look pretty close to the anime. But it's just a little blah, you know? Like there's something about the game that's not clicking visually. Let me pull up the gameplay for myself. I should have looked this up. I should have gotten this prepared before yeah. So I pulled the gameplay up, and you know what it is? I'm being dead serious right now. Why doesn't the gameplay look? Why does it look a little stiff? It's the camera. It's the camera. Okay, so yes, the character models could be a little more polished. Maybe the animations could be a little better or something. They don't even look bad. That's all like polished stuff, and this is all in the realm of polish. Here's one thing that I don't think people recognize, and I didn't even get it until I read a YouTube comment that pointed this out. The camera is really important. Now, if you watch the gameplay, you'll notice the camera at all times is completely zoomed out. It's completely zoomed out. All it does is move left to right and a little bit up and down if a character gets launched and jumps off screen, right? Or is starting to get off screen. There's a little bit of like vertical tracking. But what it doesn't do is zoom in and out. Even every single fighting game, even like, it doesn't matter if it's like Street Fighter where the camera is a little more pulled in, or if it's something like Blaze Blue where the characters only take up like half the screen. Or their heads are at like the halfway height of the screen because it's such an aerial game, right? It doesn't matter what game. They all do, when the characters are closer together, they pull the camera in a little bit, and when the characters are further apart, the camera pulls out a little bit, and there's just a constant little zoom in, little zoom out that happens as the characters, as the two players change in distance as they get closer or further away from each other. And camera is really important in a fighting game. I've realized now how important it is, because fighting games do not present you with a lot of freedom for your camera. They take place in a little box, and you have to somehow find a way to make that box look dynamic, right? In any other game, right? In any other game, there's they usually have bigger maps. Even like, in 3D fighting games, you have way more, something like Tekken, you have way more different angles that the characters can be positioned from on screen. In a 2D fighter, you're on a plane. They've got 2 axes to work with. And you have to find little ways to make that little box interesting and to give some level of dynamism to it. Contrast. Contrast is always the most important thing. Contrast is like when this is for like everything creative. When a wheel, like a saw blade, hits metal, like a spinning saw blade hits metal, and 1,000 sparks come out, that's contrast. That's like super fast motion versus dead still. And when you put those up against each other, 1 billion sparks, a ton of energy explodes out. I'm going to quote Pat Staresat from the Castle Super Beast podcast, because he actually put this sentiment, which I've had for some time, into words, which is friction makes sparks fly, which is a great quote, because it's 100% true. Like in everything, like literally, like I've talked to people about stuff like public speaking, and one of the main things I tell them is just like contrast. Just have contrast in the inflection of your words. Go up and go down. Talk for a while at a very specific pace, and then stop. And then whatever you just said last now has a lot of impact put to it. And then you start talking again. And then the audience starts rolling with you. And like, that's how you get an audience into your control. Every single thing is contrast. When you listen to music, I think like one of the most powerful techniques for me in music is when you have 2 different contrasting tones from 2 different instruments on top of each other. Like, take a look at like breakcore, for instance, the genre of breakcore. You know what a bunch of breakcore is? It's some messy, chaotic drum beat, and then some kind of like slow piano or something. Bum, 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 bum. Boom, boom, and that contrast and making your brain focus on 2 very different things at the same time just like makes your brain go faster. It makes your brain go harder. In comedy, oh my god, I was rewatching. So when I was going back, I got into like a little TF2 phase a little while ago, and I went back and I watched a bunch of the Meet the Team videos. And one thing that's always okay. I'm gonna be 100% honest. I have found forever, for as long as I can remember, I have always found a lot of the TF2 community extremely unfunny. And I think a lot of it is that they try to emulate. I think a lot of people try to emulate the TF2 style of humor, and they fail because I don't think they actually understand it. They just go, oh, wacky character says funny line. It's like, no, that's only half of it. If you watch every single one of those Meet the Team videos, the funny part of the character is the contrast. Voice crack. It's the contrast. Like Snipers. I love Snipers so much. He's like this cold-blooded killer. He's this professional life taker, right? He's like this completely mechanical machine. And then you get a bit of him like talking to his parents on the phone and like getting into like no, Dad, like like his parents don't get it, right? Like they don't like what he does. He has like, put on the phone. No, Dad, no. And that's the contrast. That's the funny part of the character, is that he does this thing that which would be kind of considered psychopathic, but there's this other half of him that's completely different. The pyro, really blatant. He's a murderer. He's like a psychopathic murderer, but in his head, he thinks that everything's like this magical sunshine and rainbows wonderland. The heavy, big, loud, brutish guy, but then he sits down and he's like, and he speaks in this very like slow, kind of intelligent way. And then you hard cut to him like screaming and laughing and blowing his minigun out. And like that's the contrast. And it doesn't have to be complex. It's just one thing, other thing. That's what makes characters interesting. That's what makes comedy funny. That's what makes music interesting, is a difference between this and that. I realized that I got started on this because I was talking about the Hunter Nen Impact camera, but really, like that is the lifeblood of making everything interesting, is two elements. The fucking Kuleshov effect. You've probably heard of this. That's where the meaning between two shot in like a film, the relationship between two different shots is creates more meaning than a single shot. The context of when the second shot is okay, like the classic Kuleshov. If you don't know, it's basically there's a demonstration of it by, I want to say, is it Alfred Hitchcock? I don't know, but like it's basically, the example is he starts, there's three different instances, like three different takes, three different edits. Each one is two shots. The first shot is always a shot of him as this old guy just looking off camera and smiling at something. And what is the second shot? The second shot changes each time. In one, it's like a mom playing with her daughter out in a field. In another, it's like a woman in a bathing suit, and in the third one, it's like a coffin. And just changing what the second shot is, creates a story. It immediately, if you were to show any of those shots on their own, yeah, you could maybe come up with something that's going on, but you match it with that first shot, and now you have like a real story. And that's where like so much of the meaning is derived from. In one, it's like, in the first one, it's like, oh, maybe he's their grandfather, and it's like a wholesome smile. In another, maybe it's kind of lecherous, it's kind of perverted. He's like giving this creepy smile to some lady. And in another, oh my, why is he smiling at this coffin? Did he kill them? Does he have a secret? Completely changes. It's contrast. So that's my advice to aiding, is make the camera zoom in and out a little bit. It'll make your game look a lot better. I think the game looks cool. The game looks cool from a gameplay perspective. It is really just like Marvel 3 and Tatsunoko vs. Capcom. If you think those games are cool and you like Hunter x Hunter or any of that's appealing, I would check it out. If you haven't heard of it, obviously it's a while away from being out, and I'd hope that some of these things are going to get polished up, because it's definitely not too late. Not at all too late. Looks like it might have kind of a small roster. It's like a 3v3 game, and you kind of need like a lot of characters for that. And I think there's like 16 or 20 on the character select screen, and like that's like not a lot. Like 25 I feel like is maybe the minimum for like a 3v3 game, because you need more variety. You need a lot of variety. And there's no like groove system or two different styles of a character or something to like set them apart. Like, oh, you can play at least you could play like two different versions of the character, or the moon system, anything like that. No, it just the characters are just what they are. There's just one version of every character, and then they've got, I don't even know if they have different like assist calls. But gameplay wise, look, you probably already know if you like one of these games. And that's all I have to say on Hunter x Hunter Nen Impact.